Ready to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, we'd like to take a moment of silence for individual prayer and reflection. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. Okay. At this time, we'd like to do a roll call for attendance. Commissioner Dance? Here. Commissioner Carney?
Present.
Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
And Commissioner Pennington is here. Thank you. All right. We have announcements by the chair. Actually, I want to call the meeting to order. Today is December 1st, 2025, 9 a.m. I'd like to give you some announcements that we have today. For additions, deletions, and modifications to our agenda, addition to item 7K, the ratification of fire rescue replacement ambulance purchase order 2023-004. It is for a 2025 Braun Chief XL on a F450 4x2 gas chassis in the amount of $300,467. That's been added to the agenda on 11/24. That's 7K. Some other announcements. We have our Nexus Center ribbon cutting. So that is this Thursday, December 4th. It will be at 4 p.m. There'll be a ribbon cutting, some tours and events at the library, and we ask that everybody come and join us. If you're not familiar where the facility is located, it is located adjacent behind us by the new sheriff's office. Fire Station 51 groundbreaking also occurs. That will be Monday, December 8th at 11 a.m., and we will celebrate the start of that construction. That is for a fire station at 305 and 100 in West Flagler County. Our county offices will be closed December 25th and 26th for Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone. And our upcoming commission meetings, workshops, and special meetings will be a joint meeting with the COPC, the City of Palm Coast, and that will be Wednesday, December 10th at 2 p.m. And we'll have our regular meeting Monday, December 15th at 9 a.m. Okay. At this time, we'd like to start with our presentations. Our first one will be the Flagler County Annual Investment Performance Review for year-end, September 30th, 2025. I believe this will be Tom Bexley and Leslie Weber, or maybe just Leslie. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Well, how are you all?
Morning.
Good morning. I don't know if you're joining me.
Tom Bexley, Clerk and Comptroller, just here to welcome our friends from PFM that are going to do the presentation on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I'll start off with making a few remarks about the economy, because that way it'll explain how the portfolios has performed. Some of the current market themes that we have seen, and this is just a reflection back, during the third quarter for the period ending September 30, 2025. If we think about the U.S. economy, it's been pretty resilient, but if we think about the other side, the labor market, it appears to be cooling. The net new job creation neared zero, as employers seem to be following, at that time, a no fire, no hire type of approach. But we did see recently in the news here that some of the bigger companies are starting their layoffs. If we think about the inflation picture, inflation did accelerate, but the Fed does expect it to be a little short-lived. With the government shutdown, we weren't getting some of the government data, but one of the CPI readings or consumer price index or one of the inflation readings did come in year over year at around 3% in September. So that's a little bit hotter than expected than where the Fed would like it to be, which is around 2%. Speaking of the Fed, they did go ahead and cut rates by 25 basis points or 0.25% in September. And that was the first time in 2025. It was more of a risk management cut, because typically you don't see the Fed cutting rates, especially if inflation is running a little bit high. But because of the cooling labor market, they did go ahead and cut that. And if we think about the Fed's dual mandate, they want to keep prices stable, but also unemployment low as well. If we fast forward in October, they did cut rates by an additional 25 basis points. They are meeting next week. It is about 50-50 on whether they're going to be cutting or not. Chairman Powell did describe this environment because of the government shutdown with them not getting the data. They are getting some data, so some data is better than no data, but they described it as driving through the fog, where since they are so data dependent, they just want to be careful before they go ahead and make that other move. But in accordance to their dot plot, this is where voting members and non-voting members of the Federal Open Market Committee places a dot on where they think rates are going to be. And it seems pretty divided here. They were expecting maybe 2 rate cuts in addition to the September one. So maybe that other one is for that December. But what's interesting is the Fed is a little divided on where those dots are. There's a camp that expects no rate cuts at all, but that rate cut did happen in October, and there is another camp that expects 2 rate cuts, and that would count for October and then this December one. If we think about yields, particularly Treasury yields, they did move lower across the curve. I'll give you a visual in a moment, but the front end of the curve did move lower. And as the Fed does cut rates, you're going to see that front end cut in tandem as well. And overall, the market did price in these additional rate cuts at the time. But what that meant for your portfolio was good performance because you held higher yielding securities comparatively to the market at that time. Within your portfolios, we are investing in items that are outside of just U.S. Treasuries, and those credit spreads this past quarter did tighten. So meaning if we are buying the same comparable maturity, U.S. Treasury, and let's say a corporate note, those spreads or the difference between those yields did come in tighter. A big component is corporate fundamentals are still strong, and also these type of securities are really in high demand here. And I'm going to show you what the yield curve has looked like, to give you a visual here. So the past year, you see in the shaded area, that shows you where yields have been for the past year. So as you could see, it has come down from its highs, but it's still pretty elevated overall. And if we look at the front end of the curve, 3 months, you see the dotted line is June 30, 2025. The solid blue line is September 2025. Now keep in mind, this is just a snapshot. Rates move all the time. But just to give you an idea, when that first rate cut in 2025 happened in September, you see the dotted line go down, and then October happened. So if we were to print this new yield, what the Treasury yield curve looks like today, it would be lower than the 3.93 that you see on the screen. Where we are investing in the core portfolio, which is a longer portfolio, you'll see it's more in the belly of the curve between 1 to 3 years. So you could see rates have moved down. And again, that's just the market pricing in those additional rate cuts from the Fed. And I do want to go back one slide just to talk a bit about the economy and just how uncertain it is with the outlook. There's going to be negatives, neutrals, and positives, of course. But I'll make a few items here on the negative side, or headwinds to the economy, with the net new job creation that was almost at zero, so the cooling labor market, that sticky services inflation number that we've seen not coming back down to that 2%. Increasing retail credit card balances, and also rising student loan delinquencies. What we categorize as more neutral was a slower tariff-based inflation pass-through. So with all the tariff announcements that we've heard in April, we expected tariffs to be pretty inflationary, and it looks like it's not really being passed through as quickly as we thought it would be. The retailers and the importers are more absorbing some of those costs for now. And if we reflect back to the beginning of 2025, because the tariffs were announced, a lot of the retailers and consumers were doing a pull forward of their buying. So that led to a negative GDP number because we were importing more than we were exporting. So as retailers are working through their inventory, we think that's a component of why that inflation isn't as high as we thought it would be because of the tariffs. Another item is stabilizing credit card delinquencies. On the bottom chart, you see is credit card delinquencies 90 plus days. Where we are now, it's stabilizing, is not as high as we were back in 2009, 2010 during the great financial recession, not as high at the peaks of the pandemic as well. And also corporate fundamentals are still pretty strong there. And what is positive for the economy is an easing Fed policy. So as the Fed is cutting rates, it is going to become cheaper for folks to borrow. And also that resilient consumer spending, if you see the chart on the bottom, quarter over quarter, that personal consumption number continues to increase there. So I'm going to move us to the portfolios here to give an overview. So with the short term and the core portfolio, the approximate size is about $68.2 million. You can see the chart on the right-hand side are all the different sectors that you are invested in between both portfolios, so well diversified across the board there. A good portion is invested in U.S. Treasuries, and the reason why is safety, liquidity, and then yield in that order for those portfolios. Doing a quick sector allocation analytics check, this is where we plot all the different sectors that you have across your investment program, and we plot this against your investment policy for the permitted investments and the maximums you're allowed to have. And you could see across the board that you are well in line within your investment policy. Same takeaway with your maximum maturity analytics there. So across the board, you are also well in line with your maximum maturities as well within your investment policy. I'll make a few remarks about the short-term portfolio. So the short-term portfolio size is approximately $40.5 million. The duration is about 0.15 years, so very short-term in nature. And your yield at cost is 4.27% versus yield at market at 4.22. So the difference between those yields, if you think about it this way, if we were to buy the same basket of securities on September 30, 2025, because the market was moving lower with yields, the market was yielding lower than what that portfolio has held. If we look at your portfolio credit quality, AA across the board, so very high credit quality for the short-term portfolio. And then looking at the total earnings on an accrual basis, you do see that upward slope between 2023 to 2025, just given where rates have been. It's still pretty elevated. So for the last quarter, approximately $556,000, and then out 1 year, about $2.4 million in total earnings for the short term. Moving on to the core portfolio, or your longer term portfolio, the size of this portfolio is approximately $27.7 million. This is a longer term strategy, and this one is sitting at 1.75 years in duration. The yield at cost is about 4.32% in comparison to 3.85. That part of the curve did move lower, so the securities that you held was much higher than what the yield curve was showing that I showed you a little bit earlier. So same with the portfolio credit quality, AA, very high credit quality across the board here, and well diversified with the sector allocation. One note that I will make with the sector allocation review of the core portfolio is you'll notice quarter over quarter, you will notice the different security types will change in allocation, and that just has to do with the market and what's available at that time. Given that yield spreads were pretty tight or pretty close during this past quarter, you won't see any movement between corporates or asset-backed securities, and we just want to make sure you're compensated for taking on that additional credit risk. So we would prefer to buy a U.S. Treasury over a corporate note or asset-backed security. And one last thing that I'll mention on this slide is just given coming into the end of the year, a lot of the issuers do leave the market. So starting in 2026, when issuers come back into the market, we hope to see new issuers and more opportunities in the credit space beginning next year. Looking at the performance for this portfolio for the quarter, $339,000.4. Now this is unrealized market value change. We did see positive market value because rates did go down. So there's an opposite relationship or inverse relationship. So there was some market value appreciation. We look at it on a percentage terms, 1.24% in comparison to your benchmark at 1.12, which outperformed on a quarterly basis. And if we look at 1 year, 4.31%, which has also outperformed the benchmark at 3.87%. And if we also look at the 3 years and even since inception, since 2022, this portfolio has outperformed its benchmark. And lastly, on an accrual basis earnings, the total earnings for this portfolio for the last quarter was approximately $308,000, and then out 1 year, $1.12 million. So that concludes the update on the investments. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
No questions.
Any questions? I have some questions, just.
Sure.
The asset-backed securities, is that anything particular? Is that auto, credit cards, student loan?
Both. Yep. Let me go
of
back
it?
here. Yes. So you'll see Ally Auto. So it's autos, American Express credit cards. A lot of it's autos and credit cards, I would say. And we have seen a lot of delinquencies in autos in the news, right? But I do want to assure you that the types of auto loans that we are buying for you is the prime autos.
Paper prime?
Correct.
Do you ever swap this out or for different ABS, or you stay in this?
Yeah, we'll swap sometimes, especially if, let's say, BMW issues another ABS type of security and it's looking better, and if we could sell at a gain, or if we could pick up something in higher yield, we'll go ahead and do that. So it might be different. So you will notice different issuers in the portfolio.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Weaver? No? Thank you so much.
Thank
You did
you.
a lovely job. Thank you. Can you send us your email just in case I have, I think, maybe 2 follow-up questions?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Board.
I just have for Tom, an administrative question. So our relationship with the investment company, is that it's by contract?
Yes, ma'am.
And when does that renew?
Oh, goodness.
Every year?
Okay, it's annual. Okay, thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
we do contract on your behalf, and we've had a long-term relationship with PFM. They've always served us well, and I think you can. I don't know if I've lived this for the last 15 years, so I can tell you when there's more principal to invest, there's more return typically, and I think that's a testament to your leadership and Ms. Petito's execution. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Board.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll now have a presentation by SMA Healthcare. Hello, sir. Hi.
Good morning. So my name is Salvatore Gentoli with SMA Healthcare. Please call me Tori. My father was also Salvatore. He got the Sal part, I got the Tori part. Made it a lot easier to know who Mom was mad with. So hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for having me. We're going to hop into an update here. This is our performance over our last fiscal year, 24-25. We have some information about new programs that started this summer and a little bit of a peek into the future as well. So currently, we have 4 locations here in Flagler County. We have our Access Center on Moody Boulevard. We have Women Assisting Recovering Mothers. That's our residential program over on Justice Lane, along with our outpatient center on Justice Lane. We began to do medication-assisted treatment and outpatient just this past year. MAT is medication for individuals with substance use disorders, something that we have found to be incredibly helpful, incredibly beneficial in tackling those disorders. Pretty cool fact about WARM that I learned from Alicia Vincent, the program director over there. Since its inception back in the mid-'80s, WARM has seen over 500 babies come into this world drug-free. Pretty amazing number when you think about it. And we also started doing primary care with the health department here in Flagler County. That's a recent development just this past summer. That's located over on Dr. Carter Boulevard. So a summary of our services rendered here in Flagler County last fiscal year. We had over 1,200 people receive outpatient services. Over 800 folks were served by our crisis treatment and triage unit. Those are individuals in need of crisis care, and as you know, currently they're transported out of county for that crisis care. We had 300 people receive case management services, almost 300 women served at WARM. Off to a humble start with primary care at the Department of Health, but I guarantee you that will increase. And we had about 100 people served through prevention. So our total for all services was 2,805 people here in Flagler County. So the QR code here, if you click on that, you can use that to get right to the Flagler County webpage on our main site. And that will show you all of the detail about the different services that are listed here. And we have our pharmacy opening up soon. We're very excited about this. It's going to be opening in the outpatient services building over on Justice Lane. SMA Healthcare is a federally qualified health center. Technically a federally qualified health center look-alike. That means we don't take any of the federal funding. We just meet the high standard to be an FQHC. And with that designation, we're able to offer deeply discounted medications to our clientele. So something that we're excited to bring to Flagler, and that should be opening in the spring. Here's a look at our budget for fiscal year 24-25. As you can see, federal and state grant money was the lion's share of our budget, coming in at 90%, a bit higher than the rest of the company. We sit at about 70% for the other areas. Next was Medicaid at 4%, client fees and insurance at 3%, and then local grants, contracts, and other income coming in at a total of 2%. Our revenues here in Flagler County were a little over $9 million, comprising 9% of our total revenue for the company. And as a whole, we had $98 million in revenue and about $96 million in expenses. So some exciting developments. This past July, we began an assisted outpatient treatment program here under a grant in coordination with the 7th Judicial Court. This is a wonderful program. This is intended to help individuals who have severe and persistent mental illnesses. Those are illnesses like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder. These are illnesses that are really hard to stay on top of. The person's symptomology really fights against them staying in recovery. So the purpose here is to decrease hospitalizations and incarcerations by actually adjudicating the outpatient level of care. These illnesses prevent folks from following up with their scheduled outpatient programs, and they end up back in inpatient crisis care far more often than is really necessary if they were to follow up on an outpatient basis. So it's a 6-month order, after which the order is reevaluated. And during that 6-month time, we're going to provide case management, psychiatric medication management, and also therapy and peer support for the individuals to keep them on track with their recovery. Another really exciting program here is our psychiatry graduate medical education program. So there is a shortage of psychiatrists in Florida. This program was approved by the ACGME back in July. It is a 4-year postgraduate residency program for psychiatrists. And our goal here really is to build capability and capacity for future behavioral health programs, not just in Flagler County, but also in the state. And that's Dr. Youssef Kanan, our CMO, is in charge of it, along with Dr. Vicki Ann Samuel. So probably the most exciting thing we have going here, of course, is the central receiving facility that we just broke ground on a couple weeks ago. We have filed a legislative budget request with the House and Senate. We have Senator Leek and Rep. Sam Greco are going to be our sponsors for that bill. We're looking at getting $1.5 million in annual operating funding, and the remainder will be comprised of $924,000 of state money, $422,000 of local, and $510,000 of other, that other being client service fees, so insurance reimbursements, for a total of $3.356 million in operating funding per year. I want to remind everybody that we are available 24/7, 365 through our crisis response team. This number can be accessed by anybody, and the crisis response team can be at a person's location within an hour's time to help support that individual through their crisis. And this team really goes beyond just a crisis call line. They actually work to develop a little mini crisis plan for the individual. They link them with aftercare with an outpatient appointment, and they'll call the person back within 72 hours to make sure that they are on track with their care. All right, that's all I have for today, just a brief update. Do you guys have any questions?
Start down here. Any questions, sir?
No, ma'am.
Just a couple, thanks. Going to your assisted outpatient program, you're a for-profit, obviously, so you must have some type of measured outcomes. How do you measure outcomes on a therapy? How do you measure outcomes on whether or not you are, in fact, decreasing hospitalization and incarcerations?
Excellent question. So we are a not-for-profit, and we do have a lot of performance measures by the state. And to retain a grant for a program like this, there are performance measures. So the individuals taking part in this program are designated by our state as high service utilizers. So we'll be basically tracking their progress in our electronic health record to look at the number of times they're hospitalized. We also work very closely with the courts to be able to determine the number of times a person has been incarcerated as well. So we'll be tracking those measures along with medication compliance, which would also be maintained in our electronic health record.
And does that come back to us? I mean, do we see that? Do you share it with the county?
Oh, we'd be happy to, absolutely. Yeah, complete transparency on our part for all of our performance measures.
And then another question, what happens to our indigent folks? How do you treat indigent
The
folks?
same as any other person, and that's one of the wonderful things about working for a nonprofit like SMA. I did spend about a decade in the for-profit side of behavioral health care before joining the company about 14 years ago. And I was working in the admissions department of a private psychiatric hospital. And I have to tell you, there's no worse feeling than asking somebody for money when they're thinking about taking their own life. It's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world. So the beauty of working for a place like SMA is we don't do that. We take everybody and anybody regardless of their ability to pay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any questions?
Yeah, with regard to the pharmacy, is that just open to your patients?
Excellent question. The answer is no, it's open to everybody. So you don't have to be a patient at any of our other programs to access it.
That's good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I ask one short one, I hope? What's your can't get it out, where you get repeat?
Recidivism rate?
Thank you.
So I can look up the recidivism rate, the current recidivism rate. What I can share with you is the recidivism rate as we calculated it probably about, I would say 3-4 years ago. We tacked it at about 12% for the inpatient crisis, right? That's there in Volusia County. When I first started with the company, that rate was incredibly high. It was upwards of 30%. We put in place a program called Care Coordination. So what this program does is it tracks individuals as they leave crisis. A person has to voluntarily take part in it, but when they do, they're going to get almost like a case management level of care for 3 months after they discharge from that crisis level of care. And that program came online back in 2017. Between 2017 and I would say probably 2022, we got that rate all the way down to about 12% for inpatient crisis. So when you can really just stay connected with a person and make sure that they are following up with what they should be doing. This assisted outpatient program really has been a missing component of the Baker Act for a very long time now. We would adjudicate, of course, the inpatient level of care. But there's nothing to keep a person on track once they leave the inpatient level of care, right? And this isn't like my hypertension or someone's diabetes, where those illnesses don't get in the way of me following up with my doctor, right? There's nothing about my hypertension that says, Tori, don't go back to the doctor. If anything, I'm motivated to go. But schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar, those illnesses, the symptoms literally get in the way of the person going by virtue of depression, mood swings, hallucinations, delusions. But when you can keep that person going to those appointments, it's incredible the effect that you can have. And there's a lot of amazing medications out there nowadays. There are long-acting injectable medications that a person that has schizophrenia can take on a monthly basis, where just that one injection will keep those hallucinations and delusions at bay. So we really hope to do a lot of good with this AOT program.
Thank
Certainly.
you. It was a good presentation, and I wanted just to follow up, with Ms. Carney and Ms. Richardson. So, yeah, just ensuring that maybe next time or going forward, we could be emailed metrics just so we can get an idea. We can talk to it a little bit better, the SMA program, about the outcomes that are happening in the community as a result of it. And that would be helpful. And then the other thing was if you could get us the information on the pharmacy to Ms. Petito, that would be great so we could share it with the community.
I'd be happy to, absolutely. And I'll work with Mr. Williams, our Vice President here in Flagler County, to get all those performance measures, specific performance measures for those individual programs to you guys as soon as possible. Be happy to share those.
Thank you. Hi.
Mr. Henson, I just wanted to add that we have a pharmacy delivery program too that's coming with that program. And so, as you know, public transportation, that's a huge concern here. And so we're bringing solutions to the table in regards to making sure that we provide that service for our citizens here in Flagler County.
Congratulations, too, on the new building.
Oh, thank you so
My
very much.
apologies
And
for not making the groundbreaking, but I had another commitment, and also want to acknowledge, thank you for recognizing Ms. Petito with the Impact Award. Appreciate
oh,
it.
absolutely. Well deserved. Well deserved, definitely. And thank you for your support. We could not do this without the support of Flagler County, hands down.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Moving on to community outreach, this is a 30-minute time period that's been allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker is welcome to up to 3 minutes to address the commission, and speakers should approach the podium and identify themselves in direct comments to the board.
David Eckert, Kelly del Sur. I am speaking this morning because deadlines are approaching for possible January votes in Tallahassee on Senate Bill 636. Also, you have proposed to you by Army Corps 100% renourishment in Flagler Beach. And in addition to those, we have BOCC consensus needs on the progress of compound flooding and pumping concepts that we just sent you some reports on. As I said in the emails to each of you, we should be grateful to the enhancements and drafting that Senator Leek produced for Senate Bill 636. Not only has he fulfilled my request to provide alternative paths for critically eroded beach designation and the resultant funding, but he took verbal input on areas of critical state concern and created opportunities for better use of these principles throughout the state. By expanding input topics, the bill provides a path to critically eroded beach designation, avoiding dune removal, by preemptive maintenance becoming an accepted method to achieve the designation rather than just allowing the erosion to occur and the dune being removed. The bill is all carrot and no stick, in my opinion. Does not force any coastal county to knuckle under to achieve this designation like it did before. Critically eroded beach designation is an attractive partnership invitation between state and local government when used correctly. Unfortunately, it strayed from the intended path, stimulating negotiations between local government and FDEP for funding, and the regulatory methods are too narrow, resulting in encouraged and negligent dune removal to attain CEB designation. How many times did we sit here saying we had to let it erode before we would get that designation? Senate Bill 636 fixes this by allowing preemptive maintenance to be added to the criteria for designation. It further encourages quality discussions by allowing compound flooding analysis and expert input to FDEP from geographic and financial inland analysis, Army Corps input, and environmentally sensitive lands that do exist in St. Johns County and Flagler County. All this additional input has been made possible by improving the scope of the local beach management plans as a tool to submit this information. So there is no stick because local government can simply not apply for critically eroded beach designation, or it can apply using a narrow scope of its dune as it has in the past, or if its dunes are already removed, it can just use the old process rather than the new. What local government cannot do is complain about not getting CEB designation, blaming FDP for unfairness in designation and withholding local funding until the dunes are removed. Then when there are particularly difficult, complex situations like Reach 3 and 4, Senate Bill 636 allows for areas of critical state concern to come into play where the state takes authority in this area. I asked the BOCC consensus today to support Senate Bill 636, doing this publicly and in direct communication to Senator Leek's office and Representative Greco. Just ask the county attorney to verify that this bill is all carrot and no stick, no risk, so the BOCC delay in approving this and asking for support is unwarranted.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert.
I'm Steve Davis. I live in Painters Hill on the ocean. Over the past several weeks, you've received several emails and attachments from David Eckert and I. These focused in one way or another on three crucial funding needs for the county: stormwater management, road and bridge management, and beach management. Each of these funding needs must be addressed in the 2026-2027 budget. The Corps of Engineers' invitation to submit a sand survey and request 100% renourishment is a new beach management funding need with a December 12th deadline. There's no time to waste. Stormwater management's the elephant in the room for Palm Coast and Flagler Beach. And it's not a small budget problem for Flagler County, about $5 million a year or at least. The issue of emergency pumping and the eventually permanent pump stations for stormwater management hasn't even been discussed yet by BOCC. Road and bridge management is an unfunded problem, except for fuel tax and successful grant applications. This must be addressed by the county, especially in the west. $4 million a year, maybe more. Beach management in the county is a county-wide concern that's been pushed onto the barrier island by politics and foot dragging. The northern 10 miles unincorporated MSBU must be funded as soon as possible to begin accruing funds and to assure designation by the DEP is critically eroded. An ILA with Flagler Beach must be negotiated urgently. They've proposed a taxing district with some funding. The funding needs of the county and the 5 municipalities for stormwater, roads, and beach management must be addressed by an all-of-the-above approach that includes general funds, a fuel tax increase, and the additional half-cent sales tax that's been debated to death. It must be resuscitated. The funding needs are just too large without it. The BOCC failure to budget these items, these 3 items, cannot continue. You must establish funding for stormwater, roads, and beach management, permanent funding. Finally, the Corps of Engineers 100% funded invitation. Please just do the 18-mile LIDAR sand survey to Corps of Engineers standards and donate the data to the 2.6 miles in Flagler Beach. Then when you get around to it, you can negotiate the new ILA with Flagler Beach or have them deal directly with the Corps of Engineers. One way or another, these 3 items need to be discussed. I think a workshop is important in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, Greg Davis, President, Hammock Dunes Owners Association. Today I'm speaking on behalf of Hammock Dunes Owners Association. I've had a chance to review Tom Leake's proposed legislation 636, and I got to tell you, strongly support it. I think it's something that the county needs to hopefully today, if not sooner, to come to consensus on. In reading the legislation, in my reading of the legislation, it allows up to 75% funding. And I understand that FDEP does 50% right now, but the law itself is 75%. I believe that this kind of program is in line not only with the thinking of the commission, but also in line with the thinking of the governor as well. I think it's imperative that we kind of get this done. I think it's imperative that the commission get behind it early and support that. I think particularly from, I have a great deal of respect for Tom Leake. I really do. And I also think that Tom Leake doesn't arbitrarily put his name on a piece of legislation unless, I think that emphasizes the importance of that. I think that within, as we're part of his district, I think it's important that we support our senator in this effort, and I think it's important that we get consensus on this from the board and find out actively and working with Tom Leake how we can support this legislation and help move it through. I pledge my personal support in doing that as well. So I really would like to see, I don't know what it takes to get consensus, but I'd really like to see us get consensus on that today so we can move forward. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to approach? All right, we'll close public comment. Ms. Petito, there were a couple of things brought up in comment. One was the letter from the Army Corps. Can you provide an update on that?
Certainly. As you know, the county received a letter, as did other communities that are in a similar situation where they identified areas where they felt, the Army Corps had felt that there may be opportunities to build back. We had reached out to the city of Flagler Beach. I have a phone call and an email into the city manager. I did not get a response. We have a draft letter that we will be sharing with them today. And in that draft letter, there is an opportunity for the city of Flagler Beach to commit to paying for a portion of the survey work. It would expedite the Army Corps' process. The draft letter, as it's prepared today, has Flagler County committed to providing the LiDAR data, which we will do internally through our staff resources. The piece that requires the funding, and it could be that we just say to the Corps that we allow them to do the work because Flagler Beach has not responded to whether or not they would like to fund it. But it is the what they call the bathymetric survey. It's the area required when they look at the wading depth, the so many feet into the water, where they're looking at the transects of the beach to see what that volume looks like. That has a cost associated with it. It's my understanding that the Corps has said it's about $25,000. So the ask to Flagler Beach is, would the city like to advance this work and pay for the $25,000 with the understanding that they wouldn't be billed until the work was performed. If not, then we would put it on the Corps to go ahead and do that work. What the Corps has shared with us is if the survey work is done ahead of time with the local participation, then it would considerably expedite the process of getting them determined on whether or not they would come in. There is a risk involved. If it is determined that it does not meet the criteria, then you could have spent the $25,000 for nothing. Essentially, but I wanted to see if the city of Flagler Beach was willing to move forward with it or not. We do have a draft letter. It's being circulated today from engineering to legal and to administration before we share it. So we do have, like I said, we do have calls into the city to determine. I'll follow up today.
Is there a need of any consensus from our board for anything since it's due before we meet again?
Not necessarily. It will come from staff. It'll come from our county engineer as the sponsor. It's really just to ask whether or not we're in or we're out. I think it makes sense that we're in. It's not something that requires consensus from this board. It's just, whether or not the city wanted to financially be on the hook for that $25,000. The LiDAR, the stuff that we're providing is being provided internally, so there's no additional cost to us. So.
And do we have an update on the MSBU studies?
The MSBU, I believe you're going to be meeting with them, might be this week. We met with them last week to talk about it. Bear with me, I'm sorry, I have to look at my calendar. I believe it's either, if it's not this week, then it's next week. You're on the calendar for December 9th to meet with our consultant, Taylor Engineering. They've set aside an hour for each one of you to go over their findings and kind of present to you the work that they've done in Volusia and kind of talk through the process with each one of you individually. So that's scheduled for December 9th.
Support for SB 636. Do we want to go ahead and get a consensus now on how we feel about 636 and what we're willing to or able to do to drive that?
I think so. I think so. I think now is as good a time as any because reading it, it really makes sense and it's going to have a lot of impact in the state, not just for us, but for any of the coastal counties. I mean, it's really a good bill, and I think it behooves us not only to do a consensus on it, but we should contact Mr. Greco and make sure he's on board with that also. And that'd be our starting point, and then look to our lobbyists for recommendation on how we can go further.
Yeah, it sounds like we want to get ahead of January even.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe we can put it into the lobbying firm also to do their part. I don't know if anyone has any.
Do we drive support for this through resolution? Can we do a resolution to support this? I don't know how the process works, other than showing up, calling, bugging them, being there in January. I mean, does a resolution show support? Can we do a resolution?
I don't think it's necessary, but as long as we have a consensus, hopefully 5-0 consensus, and then.
What document comes out of consensus? How do they know that we are consenting to this? Isn't a stronger statement a resolution by the board to support this?
I think our council has a thought on that.
Well, you can effectuate a resolution. A resolution is basically the official action of this commission, and it's recorded.
Right.
Your consensus is also recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Or if you want it to be directed and you want to have a specified document that could be sent to those officials to reflect and record the official action of the commission, then you can do so by resolution.
I think the resolution would allow, because my concern is I would just want a staff and the attorney to do an analysis of Senate bill as it's written in case there's some glitches or changes potentially within it that might come out of that analysis. But through a resolution, staff through the whereas portion would be able to stipulate the strengths of the bill. So I'm not opposed to that. I think it would provide a more detailed explanation of the bill and our support and why we're
it helps
supporting
us.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it will change, right, or could change, and then we may not
Through the
support what they
process.
change. So if we're going to do a resolution, we better state what we would support.
Right.
That's in there today. Do we want to bring that back on the 15th, or? That way they get something formal from
Will
us?
that give us enough time for them to review what Andy was just talking about?
And then-
So bring a resolution that we could vote on at our next meeting.
Our next meeting.
Speaking
Yeah,
to
I would
the
be okay
strengths
with
of
that.
the bill that we
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, I'd
You
be
could do
okay
that.
with that.
To clarify any questions?
And then obviously, if you see Mr. Leak or Mr. Greco during the season, to also pass along that information as well, because I know we all see them typically out and about. So, all right, so we'll bring that back on the 15th, just supporting the strengths. If you want to send us an email just of it, a draft before then, and make sure everyone confirms to you.
Certainly, we can do that. And I did want to share that our lobbyists in Tallahassee had sent us kind of a brief overview of the proposal. It has been circulated with staff for their input and comments, so we can certainly share that with you ahead of the resolution coming back as well.
I'd appreciate an opportunity to see that as well.
Certainly.
All right, thank you so much. All right,
Can
anything
I
else?
ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So on the $25,000 to the city, I met with Mrs. Petito and the coastal folks, and to my knowledge, the Flagler Beach has not responded back in any type of formal capacity on their commitment to funding through they're not doing an MSBU, they're not doing a taxing district. I believe the decision by the board was to allocate and I might be off on this, but $740,000 a year from their general fund for for their portion of beach funding. To my knowledge, there's been nothing formal made of that, correct, Mrs. Petito?
Correct. I have not heard back from the city.
So I think we also need to ask Flagler Beach in this letter that you're drafting to formalize their commitment to that funding. I also, while we're talking with Senator Leak and Representative Greco, Flagler Beach is heavily counting on a commitment from FDOT for future funding of maintenance in front of the seawalls. And I believe we should also get in a formal, I would like to see a line item in the budget. I think that we can help Flagler Beach and support Flagler Beach by requesting a line item in the I know it's not customary, but I still think we need to move forward and try to help solidify that funding of $500,000 a year from FDOT so that we can include it in our funding or in Flagler Beach's funding for beach maintenance. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I don't even know if you understand it, but it is a vital link for FDOT to support sand in front of those seawalls. If you don't put sand there, right, what shows up is the seawall. You are constantly looking at a seawall. So by adding that funding in with the other funding, they're at about $1.2 million a year. And they will reach that goal of maybe not the whole 6 miles, but at least the Army Corps part of one of the seawalls is in the Army Corps project. So I think we need to start putting some math to this funding plan. I did share some ideas with Mrs. Petito about this project being overfunded, but that's for another day. Is there anything, Mrs. Petito, that we can do or to our attorney that we can do to help Flagler Beach get that $500,000 commitment at a higher level than, well, the local FDOT says that they'll do it?
As I mentioned to you in our conversation, it was 2 weeks ago on a Friday that we had spent a couple hours over in DeLand talking to the district secretary, Tyler, about the various projects we had with everything from roads to stormwater to the beaches. And him and his staff had remained committed to supporting beach management in Flagler and in Volusia County, where they have constructed a series of sea cant walls. As it was explained to us, part of the discussion was there's about $6 million that had been used in REACH 2 that had been reimbursed, that the district or department was willing to provide to Flagler to be applied in REACH 2 as part of the initial construction, with the understanding that it's going to help support naturally the sea cant wall within that area. During that conversation, they also shared with us that as part of their annual operating budget, the maintenance side of FDOT commits $1 million a year. That $1 million a year to beach management has to go towards Volusia and Flagler. So roughly $500,000 a year is what they budget. However, the way the state's budgets are, they can't expend the funds until the time of need. And so the way it was expressed to us, that they couldn't provide recurring annual funding, but that they would allocate it at the time of need. So if we went to them and we're getting ready to do a project, their commitment was $500,000 for every year. It was with the understanding that if we came back and say it's 3 years and we needed $1.5 million from them, well, then that's what the ask is going to be. It's not that they're willing to cut us a check each year for the $500,000 and have us put it into our bank account, but they are committed to helping at the time of need. And that's kind of what they wanted to see, was what that demonstrated, time of need look like, and, what is the cost, and then they would cover, their share of whatever that cost is. But not that they would commit to anything in writing. We asked if they would, be willing to put something in writing. And they were reluctant to do that because of the way their budgets are structured. It has to be, expended at the time of the work actually getting done, not paying in advance.
Well, again, I think we can take that to a higher level, but I'll deal with my own decision on that. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, we're moving on to items number 7, consent. Any items for discussion first? Mr. Dance?
Sure. Under 7H, which is the software upgrade for the development building permitting, built into that, are we going to have classes for staff so that they learn the program and will be able to utilize it effectively? Is that built into that?
Do you have anyone here to speak on that one?
I look to Adam. It's software that we currently have. It's just an upgrade to the existing software. But I defer to Adam. I would assume that whatever training is necessary, the company would provide.
I just want to make sure that there's a process in place through administration that the additional software is properly trained so that we utilize it to its fullest extent. That's all.
Certainly.
Any other items, sir?
No.
Any items for discussion from you, Ms. Carney?
Yes. Under 7F, I was wondering, are we still on track for a January comparison on, and is the Wellness Center part of the whole health insurance, self-insurance system? And I'm going to ask the same question on this about improved outcomes. Who's measuring, who is actually counting or looking at the matrix on, is this wellness center reducing costs, improving, folks coming back to work in a timely manner? Or is it just a benefit, not just, but is it a benefit to the employees, and therefore, as rising costs go up, so be expenses on this?
Good questions. I had mentioned at the last meeting, I believe it was the second meeting in November, that we are on track to come back in January to look at the cost of our health care. It does include the employee clinic as part of that. The employee clinic serves in a couple different ways. It serves as, can be our primary care medical facility for some employees that don't have other doctors. It can also be viewed as like an emergency walk-in clinic. We only pay for the exposure. So when you look at being fully insured versus being self-funded, the self-funded model, you're only paying for whatever the expenses are, rather than being fully insured, where you have a company that naturally has a markup and that's their profit. And not to get too far ahead of it, but we were looking at, what would it be if we went to market for what we currently have with Blue Cross Blue Shield versus what we're paying now. And part of this will come out when we meet in January, but I want to say the difference is about $2.5 million if we were fully insured versus the model that we currently have. The clinic, in addition to serving as kind of like that primary care or walk-in clinic, it's also a place that if we do have workers' comp claims and we have employees that need to be evaluated or returned to work, we do utilize them for some of those things, as well as providing the mandatory screening or things that we have to do for folks that have CDLs and things like that. So the clinic serves in a variety of different ways. It is part of our overall health insurance plan as part of what we pay out through that. But it helps offset the fact of employees going to other providers that provide similar or same for a markup or for an increased cost.
And one more, Chair. Under 7K, I have C notes. Hold on one second. Under 7K, I received a summary of what each item, thank you very much, on which each item is about. And under 7A, fire rescue replacement ambulance ratification, there was at point number 4, although the purchase followed approved budget and procurement procedures, board ratification is requested due to ambiguity in the purchasing manual regarding signature authority. Could you help me understand what ambiguity in the purchasing manual means?
I would defer to purchasing, but I believe this item is one where we changed our internal purchasing policies. In the past, simply if the board approved the budget, and inside the budget you had your rolling stock replacement plan, you would essentially be approving the acquisition of, say, a fire truck or an ambulance. Our purchasing policies have changed now that require items like this to go to the board. Since this item is from, a few years back, and the policy did not reflect that change, it had been requested that we bring it back to the board for the ratification, because our policies that were in existence back then are different than they are today. And that's why we're asking the board to ratify a decision that was made essentially 3 years ago.
So do we have other purchases that will be coming forward so that we can clear that issue up?
That part I would have to defer to purchasing. I believe we had maybe some other fire equipment, but I would defer to Robert Rounds, our purchasing manager.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Board. Robert Rounds, Purchasing Manager. What it is in the past, you guys would approve rolling stock. Now, with the new software system with Munis, the clerk's office, we have to show how we bought it. So yes, you approve, say, $1.2 million for fire equipment. Now we have to show, and you have to approve how it was actually purchased. So that's why it comes back. So you will see things that say went through rolling stock, you approved it. This is just showing you that it was bought the correct way.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Hanson, anything to discuss? Ms. Richardson, anything to discuss?
Everything that I was concerned about has already been discussed.
All right. All right, any items that need to be pulled from the consent? Mr.?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Any for you? None?
None.
None?
No, ma'am.
Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hanson, a second by Ms. Richardson to approve consent. Any other discussion? Take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, consent passes. We're moving on to item 8A. Hello, Mr. Brower.
Morning, Madam Chair. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. This is a follow-up to an item on your September 15th meeting when we discussed the write-off, when we asked for the write-off, and you all were interested in creating an actual write-off policy. This is to fulfill that request, and I'm open for any questions that you have.
Okay. Let's start down at the end again. Mr. Dance, do you have any questions regarding item 8A?
Nope. I like the workflow, at least in the creating consistency in the collection procedures.
Ms. Carney?
1 second. So, I'm sorry. I think this mostly pertains to the ambulance services. That's what's kind of started all this.
Mostly, that's a large share, yeah.
Will we have other, I know that the county bills Medicare, Medicaid for senior services. There's some other outside not purchasing, but billing going on. So this will firm up some of those issues as well, correct? Or is it just related to the ambulance?
It's all of our things that are, all of our bills that are out there, invoices that haven't been paid. Not just that, although the EMS billing is by far the largest
The
portion.
largest, okay. I have a question on the collection rate. Oh, and obviously, we're going to be looking for a better collection rate as a result of this. Are we monitoring that now with this company?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. And the fire chief, I don't know if he's here, but they kind of follow that. And I believe he said last time the collection rate's a lot better with the current vendor than we had with Change Healthcare before.
Yeah,
don't know the
I
exact
got a
number.
copy of the most recent report on that, and I decided not to go back to the ugliness, so I'm just kind of focusing on on what we're doing now, right? Because that's
sure.
where we are. So the numbers are kind of big, So just get ready. But I think handling this on a monthly basis is a much better way of doing it. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, Mr. Hanson?
No, ma'am.
I'm just glad to see that we are cutting the time frame for this was absurd amount of time to leave money lost in a budget. I don't know how that should happen ever again. So hopefully we've constrained it to an annual.
Madam Chair, that's correct. It'll be coming every year in August. We've met with the clerk to, talk about this and create this policy. That's the best time that we thought was to come to you guys. Yeah, and every year. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting that. Appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Entertain a motion? We go to public comment.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr.
I'll
Dance.
second.
Second by Ms. Carney. We'll open this item 8A up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak can approach. All right, seeing none, we'll close it. We'll go ahead and call a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nay. Item 8A passes. Thank you, sir. All right, we're moving on to our public hearings. Item 9A, this is a legislative request for the amendment to the floodplain management ordinance to comply with the requirements of Senate Bill 180 by deleting the 5-year cumulative substantial improvement period. This is our second reading and adoption. Hello, Mr. Mingle.
Good morning, Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. Got a familiar presentation, a couple of little added points that I put in with this. This is our second reading on this. And we, again, through this, are removing that 5-year cumulative requirement, consistent with Senate Bill 180. We do think that hopefully a change will happen to this. One of the questions that came up through another agency that asked us is, community rating system implications. We're voluntarily participating in the community rating system. It gives us discounts to all of our flood policyholders. What's the impact here? Because it doesn't necessarily jeopardize our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. We do lose 40 points potentially by removing the 5-year requirement. And if you think about it, the longer the period, the more points you get. Hindsight in that criteria that's there listed at credit 432D in the CRS program, Community Rating System Program, you'd actually gain more points. So maybe hindsight, once this comes back, once we get reinstated, if we adopted a more stringent, a longer period, we went from 5 years to 10 years in CRS, we'd get more points. Right now, we believe we're earning 40 points with the 5-year. Again, we're not intending to remove this. We're having to do it because statute changed. And so hopefully once Senate Bill 180 shakes out, we're going to go back. We'll have that chance to reevaluate what we want to do in the future, and certainly we'll then comply with statute. The language specifically, just so you all know, one of the questions that came up too, may not adopt or enforce is the text of 180. You saw it in there. And so this put us in that predicament where our code says this is a requirement, we've been ignoring it. And so now we need to change the code to match Senate Bill 180. Hopefully we'll come back and fix this pretty quick. Options for the board: approve and adopt on second reading. You can deny it on second reading, or you can continue it for more information. With that, I'll close. Madam Chair, wait any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dance?
Mr. Mangle, if I heard you correctly, is that a point that we should bring to the legislators' attention, that about how this is affecting that rating?
We're pretty sure they're aware, because that's one of the things that I believe FEMA had told them. Certainly something that if you have an opportunity to discuss it with them, I think it's the law of unintended consequences. And so those other communities are certainly in the same predicament that we are. If they had a 5 or 10 year adoption within their own code, then they're losing. In the case of tenure, you're losing some significant points within the system.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Ms. Carney, any?
Madam Chairman, I move we approve and adopt the amendment to the floodplain management ordinance.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Hanson, a second by Mr. Dance. I'd like to open item 9A up for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on it is welcome to come. Nope, seeing none. I bring it back for a vote. We'll do a roll call vote on the legislative. Clerk?
Andy Dance,
Yes.
Greg Hansen,
Yes.
Kim Carney,
Yes.
Pam Richardson,
Yes.
Chair Pennington.
Yes. All right, seeing all yeses, any nays? No, and we're good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Item
ma'am.
90 passes. We'll move straight to 9B. This is a legislative request for adoption of an ordinance related to the certified recovery residences as required by Senate Bill 954. This is our second reading and adoption.
With this one, I made no changes to the ordinance or to the presentation in this situation either, same as the previous one. And so we're just presenting it now for second reading and adoption. This, again, probably best to refer to it as a sober living type counseling allowance that's within our code that we're doing this change to comply with Florida statutes. So we ask that you approve and adopt on second reading. If you choose not to, deny it. As an option, you can deny it on second reading and hopefully give us reasons on the record for why the denial is happening or continue it for additional information. Madam Chair, I'll close again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments on this one?
None.
None down this way? All right, entertain a motion before we go to public comment.
Madam Chair, I move we approve and adopt the ordinance adopting standards related to certified recovery residences.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Hanson and a second by Ms. Richardson, and we'll open this up, item 9B, for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll close. We'll go ahead for a roll call on 9B.
Pam Richardson,
Yes.
Kim Carney.
Yes.
Greg Hansen.
Yes.
Andy Dance.
Yes.
Chair Pennington.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
9B passes. Thank you, sir. All right, this is the time number 10, our county administrator report. Ms. Petito, anything from you? I know we kind of probably talked about things you were going to have to talk about.
We took care of a couple of them, but just wanted to follow up, letting the board know that we've got a follow-up discussion set for Wednesday with the developer and the attorney that represents them for the Bulow Creek potential land acquisition. So we have that going this Wednesday. Not sure if it was mentioned, but we also have the groundbreaking next Monday for Fire Station 51. And that's going to be at 11 o'clock. We're continuing to work with the City of Palm Coast. I know we're scheduled for a joint meeting on the 10th to talk about shelter services as well as animal control. So we continue to work through those meetings with them. We finalized the presentation on the one. We're going to be continuing to work on the animal control piece now. So we should have that ready to go to you as soon as we can. We'll release it ahead of the 10th. But other than that, I don't have anything else to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petito.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to ask?
Mrs. Petito, could you go to the first item about Bulow Creek? Could you say that a little bit slower? Because I am not aware of any meetings or anything going on with land purchase.
So there was the discussion regarding the annexation of Summertown and Veranda Bay. Previous conversations, even here at the board chambers, I believe, when we were going over ESL and we had Mr. Ken Belshie here, he said, my door is always open if the county wanted to consider it. There was the meeting in Flagler Beach where Flagler Beach had inquired about whether or not this was the email or the letter that I got from Dale asking staff to be present to talk about what discussions, if any, have taken place. And up until that point, we had been talking to them, but we're following up on that. We have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday. Just to look at it where the board was considering whether or not we would partner with entities like potentially the Water Management District, Florida Forever, Flagler County's ESL. We have an opportunity to submit an application to the state of Florida for one of their programs to be a funding partner. The deadline on that is December 8th. So we kind of need to see whether or not you have a willing seller. If we don't meet the deadline of December 8th to submit an application, I believe there's another opportunity after the beginning of the year. But the timing is such that I believe this item is due to come back to Flagler Beach sometime the end of this week, I believe. So we're just trying to stay ahead of that and continue these discussions with the developer and their attorney.
So the we is Michael Cimento, Ken Belchi, yourself.
We have staff going to the meeting to discuss it. I don't know who all's on the invite list, but I
Okay.
assume it's probably Adam Mingle, Eric through ESL,
ESL,
myself,
okay.
Percy.
And when is that meeting?
It's on Wednesday, I believe. Hold on, let me look at my calendar.
Okay, perfect.
I was invited as well. I'll be in attendance.
Yeah, because you started okay, great. So Flagler Beach has a workshop on Thursday.
Correct.
Okay.
Our meeting is at 12:30 on Wednesday.
Is anyone going to that workshop?
I haven't looked at my calendar.
Will
I would
any of
like
this-
to be, in case there's questions that pop up.
It's the same time as the Nexus Center.
Yeah, that's right. I think I don't need to be at the Nexus Center for the entire 3 hours, but
Okay, all right.
yeah.
I just think somebody needs to be there to reiterate if anything productive comes out of that meeting on Wednesday.
The goal is to get a willing seller letter signed.
Correct, okay.
That's the objective.
All right, good, perfect, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez, any updates?
No new updates. We continue to work on trying to resolve some of our outstanding litigation. So we're still moving forward on that. Along those similar lines, I know most of you have met with the group intending to try to develop the Magellan project over the last 2 weeks or so. I do have a phone call conference later this afternoon with council to begin the process of trying to see where we're at on maybe coming under the, trying to enter into the interim agreement, which is prescribed under the public partnership statute. And that's simply just a kind of, we put on paper that we agree to discuss further. It's a non-binding document, but it will begin to at least define the terms because they're still very ambiguous. And from there, that's kind of a starting point where we can begin to see where that's going. The last note, only because I don't know if you have been approached yet or if it's going to come up, and it might be minor, but about a week and a half ago, I was approached by a reporter from the Daytona News Journal regarding a Flagler County resident who is initiating a petition to secede a portion of our county, as well as a portion of St. Johns County and Volusia County, to form the 68th county. I did provide simple, dry legal language as to the process for the creation of a county. A serious attempt at creating a new county in Florida hasn't been done since 1965. But in the event that you are approached with more of these questions, if this gains momentum, I just want you to be aware that I have reviewed the process. It's a legislative discussion that has to be taken under consideration. There's the Constitution and Florida statutes are, I don't know if they're purposefully vague, but they're not clear on how to actually create a new county out of the current counties, but it's a fully legislative process. But I wanted to get you guys on the radar just in case anybody approaches you wanting to know any opinions you may have about this efforts to secede a portion of Flagler County. I just wanted to bring that onto your radar. Aside from that, we're still proceeding forward and there's nothing else to report.
Yes, Ms. Richardson.
A quick question on the Magellan project. You're going to have a semi-contractual kind of agreement towards moving ahead a little bit more,
Well,
right?
if there's an interim agreement that is drafted, that actually will have to come before this board for your approval. So we're looking at now, looking at the terms, drafting it, coming up with some type of what that agreement is going to be. And all interim agreement does is it lays out their parameters to kind of we are hereby agreeing to negotiate. When you have an unsolicited bid on a public-private partnership, or P3 is the parlance of the industry, it's a two-pronged process on your end, in which first you actually have to review the proposal is brought to you, in which you review and vote on the actual proposal, and then that vote opens up the second process, which is the county's determination of whether this actually meets a public purpose and a public need. And then there's a second approval, which will move forward into entering into such an agreement. We're even before those two processes. There is a clause in the statute that allows for an interim agreement. It's kind of like almost an exclusivity agreement where you'll agree to negotiate or you'll agree to enter. The statute provides that that agreement is non-binding. Either party can walk away from those preliminary negotiations without any
It
penalties.
doesn't secure the...
No, it does not secure anything.
okay.
It's a non-binding agreement. It's just simply laying out the terms that we're hereby going to be in discussions with this party and trying to obtain or get to that point of bringing it back to you for an agreement.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to go to 10C, community outreach. This is a 30-minute time period allocated for public comment for items not on the agenda. Each speaker is allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. You can approach.
David Eckert, Cali del Sur. In follow-up to Commissioner Carney's ideas relative to the information she provided from Flagler Beach. In the consideration of Senate Bill 636, we actually did not include the word dedicated funding because of the complexity in some areas in Flagler County relative to funding. What you may want to consider is to decide what the county is willing to do within the multi-parties that are playing in Flagler Beach and other areas. So you have Florida DOT, you have the Army Corps involved, you have FEMA from time to time being involved, and you have the city of Flagler Beach itself and Flagler County potentially giving grants. So ILAs from a two-party standpoint are not going to be sufficient to deal with this topic. But to try to bring this to some consensus so that you can include information relative to the management of the whole 18 miles, because the wording in 636 deals with having a beach management plan that details a plan to finance it over time. Could be a 3-month or 3-year chunks or 5-year chunks or whatever. Then the issue of whether FDOT is going to put in definitive money or dedicated money then falls away because they would be able to write an intent letter to you indicating what their long-term purpose is in supporting Flagler Beach. So I would encourage the staff and the commission to think of proffering something that the county across all these players is willing to do as your part of the puzzle. Might be matching funds, it might, so that you're not asking for the matching funds, you're providing an offer to provide matching funds. There is some combination of approach that you can take along the lines that you were talking about, Commissioner Carney. So I would encourage you to do that because we've got 2 or 3 years of failed performance on trying to get something to come together from a commitment from Palm Coast and a commitment from Flagler Beach on what they're willing to do. So I would encourage you to say what you're willing to do and let them fill in the gaps.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to approach? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close community outreach. We'll bring it back for commission reports. Start with Ms. Richardson.
Thanks for letting me be the first vote once. I appreciate it. 5 is the loneliest numbers. Well, we had a wonderful opportunity to, I was able to attend our conference in Tampa for the Small County Coalition as well as the Florida Association of Counties. Tons of information, lots of things that we're looking at. One of the suggestions, we all know that there's been a lot of discussion about cutting taxes. They had 13 propositions of the different ways to cut it. I've got the papers if anybody cares. It's just been reduced a little bit, but there's a lot of questions. One of the things that was pounded into my head over and over again by so many of the speakers was, look at your budget right now from last year and look at what can be removed, because they know we will be running short next year. They could almost guarantee it, because there is some cuts that we're going to lose due to these tax questions, and it's going to be a tough year next year. So whatever we can save, whatever we can cut, I can't remember how many times they said it, but that's number one. They do have a concern about that to the point where we're going to lose the money for our required resources. There's a video. Andy, do you remember the video? I think it was Keep Florida. I'm sorry, I think it was Keep Florida Thriving.
Correct.
.com. And there was another one similar to that. And that was going to be a TV commercial produced by FAC to let people know that, yeah, there's parks and rec and all those other things, but what happens when you need roads and so forth. So it's pretty much a reason as to why we have the taxes that we have. So they are trying to fight a little bit of a battle. It's going to be a Goliath. You're going to see a lot of it on TV. It's coming, but the good news is that our association has gone ahead and prepared for that type of an event. One of the fabulous things that I heard was that we're the second largest PIP group in the country for farming, and that's part of our rural gift that we have. We have a 20% return on investment on that for every dollar. So that's a super opportunity. They also talked about one of the doctors that Andy knew from UF, Dr. Andre Johnson, talked about training new farmers, which fits into our 4-H club and the things that they brought to us last month. So that's really exciting to me. We just need to be ready to be planned for tax adjustments. The state revenue is weakening. And look at your budget. It just was nonstop with that. I just want to thank the KeepFloridaThriving.com may be the website. So it's one of those two. Looking forward to seeing things be a little bit smoother than what they made it feel like. I think we've had a wonderful year. I want to thank everybody for being here and being part of this wonderful county and for making things peaceful, comfortable, and professional on our board. I want to thank our board for really respecting each other and working as a team individually as well as together. It's a blessing to be here, and thank you to all of you who support us for the needs of our county. And I'll leave it at that. So that's the end of my report for today.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Yeah, I also was at the FACT policy meeting, and I serve on the federal policy deal. And the only thing I want to report there is that we fully support funding the Corps of Engineers and also fully support funding beach erosion issues in Washington. And they were both very strong reports, and we're going forward with those. So,
Thank you, sir. Ms. Carney?
Sure. I'm noticing a increase in airport complaints again. I don't know if all of you are as well. Don't know how we tackle this. Don't know who responded or if anyone is responding, but I will forward anything to Mrs. Petito. It's a name I haven't seen that has not come up before. It's probably, I believe this individual is in the U section, which tends to be kind of close. This may be an educational opportunity for us to let that community know that we're here. We're not particularly able to make major changes, but it seems like the response is pretty much the same over and over again. It's FAA jurisdiction. We can't stop certain things. We can't do certain things. But we're kind of sitting here complacent. I don't know. I'll get with Mrs. Petito to see, or maybe that is going to fall under, because it was under Jorge. So I don't know. I think we need to get some public relations out on this airport. We need to do something. We need to change the image of that airport. As hard as it is going to be, we have a very necessary, it's part of who we are, and the airport is part of the county. So we gotta embrace it and get some of this negativism down. And I'm not quite sure how we do that other than through a public relations type of I lost the word. Incentive, or not incentive, but yeah. And I also had a question about the administrator's performance review. This, again, was my first time doing it. The process was a little confusing to me. I don't see Charlie in the audience. I have put forth some of my observations, but is this the end of the road? Do we discuss it? Does the chairman bring it to discussion or an agenda item? What do we do other than go through this? I'm not sure we have a policy on how we handle performance review. This is the only employee we have that reports to us. Have we met our obligations to the public? Just saying it's a public record. If you want to go get it, go get it. I mean, have we lived up to our obligation to the public and the people that pay salaries in Flagler County? And if the answers to all of the above questions is no, or I don't know, could we workshop this? Not today, not tomorrow, but before, well, in the spring. I think that the contract itself needs to be looked at. I think the contract has got loopholes in it, and the actual performance I never got educated on it. For me, it's okay because I've done hundreds of them, but I just don't think this, whatever reason we did all this, is not really clear to me. So if we could discuss that openly. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Carney. Mr. Dance?
Sure, thank you. Let me start up with the beginning. I have a couple follow-ups to Ms. Carney's comments. The 1,000 Friends of Florida, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of 1,000 Friends of Florida, but they have a really good seminar and webinar going on. And I don't know how many they put out, but at least 6 or more a year. The latest notification was one on, excuse me, was on complete streets. So if you're not familiar with the complete streets legislation, it probably will be another very good seminar in getting up to speed on what complete streets do and how they can help the county and the city moving forward. So that one's coming up on December 10th. If you wanted to look that one up, if you want more information, just reach out to me. I'll send it to you. Also wanted to thank Brian's not in the audience, but wanted to thank Brian for sending out the email on the fund balance and the interest income increases. That was helpful to get that in an easy to follow spreadsheets for both of those, showing how both of those have increased recently. And briefly following up on the FAC conference, and following up on Commissioner Richardson's point, the takeaway from the property tax proposals that are out there is they really are suggesting that the counties go through a budgetary exercise to, say, pick out some of the more you can't go through 13. I think that would be kind of ridiculous. But pulling up like former Speaker Renner's proposal or some of the other ones that have gained traction and are being discussed more, and actually go back to last year's budget and see by removing some of the exemptions what that would do to the budget and how it would actually affect the decisions that we made on what we're funding. So following up on your comments, what would be removed? I think Commissioner Thomas in Wakulla County, they've done the process and determined through that what wasn't going to be funded if they actually had to live under those regulations. So that's, finance potentially could go through that and as an exercise just to help administration as we look forward. It's kind of hard because the target's moving, but it's the results. I think as an educational component to the public, if some of these go through, these are the services we just are not statutorily required to provide and would be subject to being cut if there aren't adequate replacements, if you're going to reduce property tax and there's no replacements. Regarding the airport, Ms. Petito may want to hop in on this one following my comments. I know I've met with Ms. Petito and Roy, and Michael's helped as well, just in my questions on the airport. So I know you may want to speak to what's going on and when we're going to get another airport report, but there's a lot going behind the scenes if you wanted to touch on the website revision and the Q&A and all that other stuff.
Certainly. As you mentioned, we are in the middle of revamping the airport website, and through that process, updating all the FAQs, kind of putting, the fact versus myth kind of questions out there, some of the standard stuff that we've received. As you know, we have the airport, the working group that had been commissioned by this board, working together. I believe they're going to be doing one-on-ones and getting an individual tour of the airport as they work into the development of that master plan. I did want to mention that last Monday, I believe it was, we met with Councilwoman Pontieri regarding the airport. She had submitted a list of questions. We worked through that. We responded to her in writing as a follow-up to that meeting. We can certainly share that information with you so that you can see what her questions were and how we responded to that. I have not received any new emails from a new resident, so if you have those and would like to share them, I'd be more than happy to respond. But there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scene to really address some of the concerns with the understanding that we are limited on what we can do. And so I think it kind of speaks to the questions that Councilwoman Pontieri had. She understands that we do have limitations on what we can do. And so I think it's more of educating the public and, letting them know. And I believe, not to speak for Michael, but I know he even responded to one of the constituents last week, again, just over airport concerns and trying to answer the concerns that they have and address some of the false narrative that's out there. Because if we don't address some of the false information, then the general public believe it to be true. And so we are working on that and continue to, try to resolve some of those issues.
Just to follow up. So CCing us on some of that educational information, it's probably okay because we're getting questions as well. So if there's information it's all public record, I shouldn't have to go dig for it. So just send it to me. Anything airport related, I want to know about it. I want to hear it because otherwise I'm going to end up having the same questions and they've already been answered. So I would appreciate a copy of the correspondence with Councilwoman Pontieri, and I did attend the group master plan meeting. It was a very good meeting, but again, the timeline is this long. We got to bring it in a little bit, and yes, 100% on public education.
And I would say Michael, you could probably share that letter. Ms. Shelley had specifically added Michael to the distribution, so he responded accordingly, and so that should get to everybody for their knowledge as well.
Right, a copy of that letter was distributed to
okay.
all 5 of you.
Everybody, okay, very good, very good.
Got it. Excellent.
Awesome, thank you. And, just a continuing conversation, I had a meeting with Ms. Petito and Percy and Roy about a comparison that I did of all the airports in the area and what their rules and restrictions and their voluntary abatement procedures are, and recommended where we're out of line with the other surrounding airports. So Ms. Petito is working with that information that I forwarded to her, and I do believe we're due. I don't know when Roy is coming back to the commission, but I know that's after the beginning of the year, I'm sure. And then
You actually found policies or procedures that relate to airport noise?
compared all of the surrounding airports and their voluntary noise abatement procedures and other activities that go on, and was able to compare and contrast and find areas where there's differences so that staff could review those.
Well, thank you for doing that. That is painstaking. I know it is. It requires a lot of research. I thank you for doing that.
And then in regards to the the evaluation, I think what we've seen in the past is, and probably will be picked up again, is the press does their evaluation of our evaluation. So we can do any. There'll be an article. We've already seen one from Dale. We've seen one from I can't remember who else. I think it was from Lauren. But so there's a the checks and balances are typically from our the press that follows those things as well. And beyond that, I would say in advance of in the summer before the contract renewal, we can always have a workshop and look at the administrator's contract at any time, if that's something the board wants to do.
Will we have a rebuttal in the event that things are not necessarily presented in the way that it was presented by, the news's twist or,
Through their normal procedures for rebuttals.
Okay. Just asking,
Sure.
because that may come up at a concern.
I think because we're doing things in NeoGov now, I think one of the issues, which is maybe not fair to either one of them, will be that the questions were almost repetitive of the same question.
Yes.
And if you're not scoring along the lines of the question before, you could actually give them a lower score. It's like too many of the same questions being asked over and over again than having you put a score in. So it's almost like maybe there should be some sort of review of what questions are relevant to the job by this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
By this board.
We should review
Yeah.
the evaluation itself, because in many of those, I just said, see the above question instead of answering it. It was a direct repetition from an earlier question. And
Right.
So
But
redundant.
you're scoring too. And so I'd almost feel like maybe that is something that needs to come back here earlier in discussion with contract too. Just because it's a problem. I think it was a problem when I was going
We
through
should
it. I was like,
review
we should review. And then there wasn't questions that you want asked. You know what I mean? So maybe that is like a takeaway over the holidays that you decide what kind of questions would I really like to see, on this form that were relevant to the role. And same for county attorney. That way, make sure we're weighting doing the scoring on things that are relevant, because it was like the same question over and over for so much. And then you have to make sure you're scoring based on the previous question you answered, if you're going to say C above, or else you could really skew out their score.
I didn't,
Well, it didn't change my scores. It just made it a little
Good,
bit.
yeah.
So knowing what you just said, I would like to ask Mrs. Petito to have HR provide us, or at least I would like to see a copy of the attorney score sheet so I can match it to the brand-new attorney job description, and I'll do my own analysis on whether or not it matches or not, and then I'll meet with the attorney to see if he thinks it's a fair evaluation. Not having the input from the person that's being evaluated, in my opinion, is not an effective performance review. But I just, maybe I do them differently, maybe I think differently, but I want to get ahead of it. I know it's probably 6 to 10 months out, but I want to get ahead of it, so. And then I'll call Charlie and get a copy and see who's going to write the questions. According to Charlie, the questions were written by Jorge and Charlie. So
I thought it was part of the
jump ahead
program.
of, no, it wasn't. Jump ahead of it, Mr. Rodriguez.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I know that we saw an email, most of us did, about, I had asked Ms. Petito, I had 2 local business owners say, you know, other counties have ordinances regarding preferential treatment. Yeah, you saw the email. Preferential treatment if you are a local hire on bidding, when you're bidding for one of our contracts. And most of our contracts have been state grant or, state-fed combination. And therefore, there is a state law that prohibits allowing preferential treatment of local contractors. But I think the state law says if it's 50% or more of the funds that came from the state, right? So which most of our projects have been, obviously. But I did find, and I think it's, I'm trying to pull up the law, it's like 255.0991, prohibits local ordinances that give preference based on location, local hire, or local taxes for construction services if they're funded 50% or more by state money. And I know all of our projects are in flight, are funded by state, but I'm wondering if we want to just flesh it out some more to see for the future if we want to have an ordinance that does give like a point system for locals who bid on our jobs, so that we keep jobs local if we can with our local government. If we want to give it's just an added point, like a weighted in the process, if we're funding it, or if the way the state's going, where they're obviously wanting us to have a match, do we want to start doing like a 51% match, or have a policy to that, or attempt to do that so that we can get more jobs back here locally with our projects that we have that are funded in part with the state? It's every county, it seems like, has it baked into their procedures, but we had it and they took it away, and I don't know if that's something we want to bring back so that we can ensure that locals are getting to be subcontractors or contractors on projects where we are funding.
I had the same conversation, so it was something that I did with the school board early on in my term, but it's the state legislature keeps limiting our home rule. And Ms. Petito even mentioned that there was a law that did not get approved or passed, but it was even limiting county dollars. So there was another imposition on local rule that ultimately didn't get signed, but they're continuing to look at ways to limit our ability to influence some of those, especially if it's local Flagler County tax dollars. I don't know if Mr. Rodriguez can pull some best practices, and what is the potential impact even if we did it? Is it so small that?
Or just to have there, because it may become where most of our projects start having to be funded by us because the state's going to do less and less.
Right.
Or if we're doing a 50 match and their cap is 50, maybe we want to do a 51% so that we can have that ability to hire local. And I tell you, it came up in Palm Coast where they had a project bid by I think it was Jacksonville firm, where they came back to the board and wanted the board to pay mileage for all their contractors who were coming from out of county. They wanted to change the contract, which I thought was ridiculous to that. But I know that the local, and I'm sure the same business owners were saying, we can't even be the subcontractors on anything you have going on. You have subcontractors coming from West Florida and everywhere else, so we're losing out on local employment. So if there's something, if there's a consensus just to continue to look and see what the other counties are doing, to make sure that we have some sort of ability for locals to bid or be subcontractors on our projects.
I say yes.
Yes? Okay,
Of course.
all right. We'll have that as takeaway for both Ms. Petito and Mr. Rodriguez. Okay. I don't have anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah.